Hello. Hello and good evening. I'll give everybody a few moments to get in here before I get started. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I can't believe it's Tuesday already. It was literally just Saturday, like yesterday. All right. Hey, Faith. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right. So, whoever else is coming in, they'll join us whenever they're ready. But as I always do, I just want to check in with you guys before we get started. How's everybody doing? Definitely feel free to comment. Tell me what's going on with you. How's your day going? If you had to work today, how was work? If you have, if you got kids, how your kids doing? How's everybody doing this lovely Tuesday evening? By the way, I'm doing fantastic. Always here to be in front of you guys. Always here. Always glad to be talking to you all, because this is kind of one of the best parts of my week, when I get to share with you guys what's on my heart and my mind. What's up, Jasmine? Sana. I heard it as soon as I read it. All right. So Chris asks, how do you help a person transition from a mindset of lack to a mindset of increase? So Chris, that's a really good question. And he's on IG. It's a good question because it's not a one size fits all answer. It really is. It has to do with where the person is starting. You always want to start with things that help them to start believing in themselves, whether that's them reading a particular book, whether that's them talking to themselves, speaking to themselves differently. A lot of times we're the worst when it comes to self-talk. Like, other people can believe in us and pour belief into us, but until we believe it ourselves, it becomes very difficult. Faye says she's doing good, but we can talk more about that later though, Chris. I appreciate you asking the questions. So, as we go ahead and get started here, what I want to do, because some of you may not have been up here last week, we may not have talked last week. So just a quick recap. So last Tuesday, we talked about the impact of fear. And that's important because fear can hold you back from things that you're called to do, things that you really want to do. What? Okay. Things that you want to do, and things that, I'm sorry, my IG one just went down. I don't know what that's about, but hopefully y'all can still hear me on IG. Okay. I think we're good. So it can hold you back from things that you want to do in your life. And anytime you have something that's a roadblock, a lot of times when it comes to fear, you actually put that roadblock there because you have the capacity to remove it in most cases. So the fear can only hold you to the extent that you allow it to, right? And then on Thursday, we talked about finding the joy in your life, which is also important because we actually create our own joy as well. And every time we talk, like, I do want you guys to know that the changes that you want to see in your life, the increase that you want to see in your life, the impact that you want to have in life, you determine that. Yes, we have external factors. We have people around us that may be negative, that may not believe in us. We have, jobs that may feel like they're trying to hold us back. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to make the decision to rise above, to make different choices, and to surround ourselves with different people. So we talked about that with finding joy in your life. And today we're going to talk about navigating relationships. So everything is really tied together, to be honest with you. But when we talk about navigating relationships. As most of us know, relationships are hard. They're hard. And not only that, they take work. Relationships take work if you want to have healthy relationships. Now, if you just want to have people around you for the sake of having people, that takes no work. It takes no effort. But when you actually care about people and you want to see your relationships flourish and you want to nurture those relationships, they absolutely take work. And that's whether it's your associations, your business associates, your coworkers, your family members, your significant other. All of those relationships take work, and they can be hard if we let them be hard. Every relationship has its tension, its ups and downs. Keela, you are right. Listen, a full-time career. Relationships are. And because we're built for relationships, we're going to encounter them in every aspect of our lives. We're going to encounter times and instances where we need to rely on other people. We need to connect with other people. And we show that differently depending on how we know and how we are connected to other people. So, for instance, everybody has different preferences, different ways that they feel about things, different temperaments. So, for instance, some people will, I'm not so much into astrology, but some people will say, oh, you're a Pisces, you live in the clouds, whatever people say about Pisces, right? But then you'll have somebody else who's fiery. I've known that to be true of Aries, but it could be any sign, to be honest with you. But you have to know that because we all have different temperaments, we all deal with each other in the way that we help each other relate and connect. So if you have relationships with someone, let's say your significant other is very sensitive, very sentimental, then you know that you can't talk to that person in a derogatory way. Also, you can't talk to that person like they're a football player. And I use that example because football players are generally known to be rough. If you've ever watched a practice or you've listened to a coach coach football, they're not saying, oh, it's okay, guys, you missed that pass, try again. No, they are hollering at those players because they believe that that's the best way to get them to move, to do whatever it is that the coach is asking them to do. Exactly, Jasmine. How dare they? What's up, Trey? So at the end of the day, we all have to learn how to navigate relationships in a way that not only builds us up, but builds up the other person as well. So let's say maybe on your job, you might have coworkers that rub you the wrong way. Maybe your supervisor rubs you the wrong way. That's a relationship that's not only important in your life because it determines the quality of the environment of your job, but it really also, some people bring that home depending on the severity of the negative environment, right? Jasmine said you got to deal with people on an individual basis. And that is absolutely true. Right. And Chris said, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. We know that as the golden rule, but at the end of the day, it's important, but it also applies to us, not just because of how we want people to do us, but because we have a greater assignment on us than to do what other people do to us. Right? Does that make sense? So somebody might be very ugly to you. Somebody might be very, very derogatory towards you, very negative. That doesn't mean that it's okay for you to do that to them because that's what they're doing to you. Right? That means that regardless of what the other person is doing, it's still our job to treat them in a manner that helps us to grow. Because relationships are also all about growth. All about growth. They grow and stretch us in ways that can sometimes feel overwhelming, right? You have people that may be very, very direct, and you might not be used to that. You might be used to passive aggressiveness, right? Maybe that's what you grew up around. And so you meet someone, or you work with someone, or you get into a relationship with someone who is very direct, very honest, very blunt. But at the end of the day, you guys, between you and the person that you're dealing with, have to come together to come to that agreement that that's not the best way to handle me. And I have to say this because this is super important. People treat you the way you teach them to treat you, right? So you teach them to treat you, talking to you any kind of way, calling you whenever they'd like to call you, not respecting your space and your boundaries. Every time they do it, you allow it. You're giving them permission. You're giving them permission to continue that behavior. Now, there are some people who are just disrespectful regardless of what you're saying. But if you continue to allow that person in your life, then you're allowing the disrespect. You're accepting the disrespect. But there's a flip side to that too. You teach people to treat you with love by the way you treat people. So if every time something negative happens, the first thing you do is you start cursing people out, you flip out, you don't know how to handle your emotions, that makes other people feel like, oh, okay, well, that's how she or he responds emotionally to things. So if they do something that angers me, then now I have to flip the script and do the same thing. And that's not the case, right? Because the same way we treat someone, or we teach someone to treat us in a positive manner, we can also teach them in a negative manner. And Faith said, yeah, we need to set boundaries. That's true. Because whenever we don't set boundaries, then people feel like they can walk all over us. And that's not just people who are passive, right? That's not just people who are soft-spoken that can get walked over. That's really any of us who don't decide, or who don't tell people, who don't show people what we're about and who we're about. So a couple questions for you guys, right? So have you ever had a misunderstanding, or somebody misunderstood something that you said, and their behavior towards you after that misunderstanding was to talk about you, or to treat you like you took something from them, right? Or to have an attitude with you, or to withhold something from you. Let's say it's your supervisor and they decide to withhold a promotion or withhold a raise, or what happens. So how do you handle those things? How do you handle those situations? Sometimes it's out of your control. Brian, that's good. He said you have to give respect to receive respect. And that is very true. Like, people oftentimes won't respect you if you're not a respectful person. It really is reciprocated. And then Bridget said you can't get mad at them when they cross boundaries that we never said or told them about. Look, that's the thing. If you didn't say it, if you didn't say it, it didn't happen. So that's why it's important for us to be the people who set that boundary. We can't wait for somebody else to say, okay, I won't do this. No, you tell them, I really don't care for you talking to me like that. I really don't care for the way we interact when we're in each other's space. I'm really not okay with every time we're together, or every time we have a conversation, I leave feeling upset because you point the finger and you never take responsibility for your actions. And you always let them know how you feel. And that's how we start to set those boundaries with people. But how do you act? How do you handle the situations that are kind of out of your control in your relationships? Like some of the ones at work. Are you able to respectfully say what it is you feel and address the issue? Are you somebody who just kind of lets it ride? And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm the person that lets it ride. I'm like, Brian says he just flattens a car tire. You could do that too. I would not advise you to do that though. But for me, sometimes I do just let things ride, because I do pick my battles. And if it doesn't seem like, to me, a battle that I want to drag out or draw out, I'll let it ride and I won't say anything, and I'm going to keep treating you with love. I'm going to keep showing up, smiling, say, hey, how you doing? And not everybody's used to that. Some people don't like if you don't address things. And to be honest with you, that's not always the healthy way to go about it either. Hoping that they'll get it. They'll get that, okay, well, she's not mad, so I might as well just forget it. No, to be honest, we have to address it. Bridget said he always addresses it, which could be a bad thing at times. But you're right. Your energy is expensive. Our energy is expensive. And that can be exhausting, right? When you have people who are always negative and you decide to be the bigger person, but you never address the issue. That's exhausting, guys. Exhausting. Trey said, I just shut out because sometimes silence is the best response. That's a yes and a no. Maybe an initial silence until you get your thoughts together. But you always, like I said, want to find a way to address it in the most respectful manner. Whether or not they were respectful is besides the point, because you can only control what you do. You can only control your own attitude, and really you control your environment. And if you decide that you want to, who is Lapeef? Oh no, call into Lapeef. Let's talk on YouTube. But yeah, so you decide how that's going to be carried out, right? But the easy thing to do is just to say, I'm not going to worry about it. But as you do that, it builds. The tension, the discord, all of that, it builds up. And then eventually somebody's going to say something, and it's not going to be a gentle conversation. It's going to be, all this time you allowed, I can't believe you, and you're thinking it was a small issue. And the whole time they're offended, they're hurt. And even if it was a misunderstanding, even if it was something that you didn't mean to say the way you said it, even if it was something that you thought was clear as crystal and they totally misconstrued what you said, people can hold on to that for years. Did y'all know that? People can hold on to those kinds of feelings and emotions and that kind of anger for years and never address it and eventually get filled with hate for you out of that misunderstanding. Trey said a lot of issues come from accountability. Pride and ego get in the way and cause more tension. Absolutely. Pride is a major issue when it comes to interpersonal problems. And that's because most of the time we think it's not us. One, right? And then two, even if we know it's us, sometimes our pride gets in the way, so we won't apologize. We won't address it and say, you know what? It was me. At the end of the day, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it that way. I was upset about something else, or I was upset about the situation. And I should not have come across that way. A lot of us are just too prideful to do that. And then Breon said, like someone said earlier, I handle people on an individual basis because people are different. That's 100% true. We are all different. We all handle conflict differently. But the most important thing is that not only do we address conflict in a way that benefits both of us, but we address it in truth. So I had an experience before with a coworker, and this is interesting because I don't generally have issues with my coworkers. If I'm being 100%, maybe friends, I might have family members, I might have issues, but coworkers, I don't really see the same people enough to have issues. And if I do, I just feel like I'm pretty nice. So somebody might be able to prove me wrong. I don't know. That might be my pride talking. I don't know. But I had an issue with this coworker. And because I'm a pharmacist, the technicians that work with me I'm considered management compared to their position, right? So I had a technician at one of the places that I worked at, and I don't know if she was just, how people say I'm on one today. I don't know if that day she was just on one, but it was like everything that I was asking her to do. That's a part of her job, by the way, was a problem. Okay, I guess I'll answer the phone. That's part of your job. Don't you normally do that? So I'm just still working, okay, well, she'll figure it out. She'll get it together. Well, after probably about the first 2 hours of working with her and getting that same energy and that same negativity, I just had to address it. I was just, can you come over here so we can talk real quick? Now, am I her usual manager? No. But because I am a manager, I should still get treated with the same respect. And I also give the same respect that I'm asking for. So after she and I talked, I realized, she let me know that she had issues going on at home, whatever that was really stressing her out. And I get that. I get it. We all have stress. We all have situations in our lives that cause us to bring that elsewhere. We bring that to work. We bring that to in our relationships. Things that have nothing to do with that. We bring other emotions, other issues into those relationships. And I just let her know that can't continue. If you need 5 minutes to sit outside and breathe, do that. Right? But that's one of the ways that I've dealt with the problem that probably would help somebody. We don't always get it right. So sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't say, hey, let's talk it out. Sometimes I wait for the person to come to me. Now, how do y'all think that goes when I do that? Wait for the person to come to me before we talk about something. And I'm the one mad. That doesn't usually go too well, right? Because by the time they come to me, now they're upset. You've been mad all this time and you didn't say nothing. Of course, because I figured that you would talk whenever you're ready to talk. And that's not healthy, but that's something I'm working on. I'm working on me. Okay. You work on you. I work on me. Bridget said, what if we can't or don't own all the apologies that aren't ours? When we find ourselves apologizing for things that are not our doing. So here's the thing about that, Bridget. Whenever we end up feeling like we have to apologize for something, or whenever we end up apologizing, even if we don't feel like we had to, some of us are the peacemakers. I'll just be honest about that. Some of us are the peacemakers, and we're always the ones that bring the situation down. We de-escalate situations. They're not always our fault. They're not always our doing. We're not always in the wrong. But out of our own nature, we don't like conflict, and we are the ones who de-escalate. That's a tough place to be in, though, because even though we don't like conflict, even though we're not at fault, and if we find that to be a pattern, it's a possibility, Bridges, that that's not really a relationship that's adding to our growth, right? So it may be stretching us because it's teaching us what may be humility, but at the same time, taking on fault, taking on a weight that's not yours to take, it's not healthy. It's not healthy for you, and it's teaching the other person in that relationship that it's okay to treat you however, and they think that you owe them that. You owe them those apologies, whether you're at fault or not. And that also is not healthy. So at some point you have to be able to say, all right, so this is look, we gotta make a decision, because I can't keep giving you the positive energy that I need. Like the energy that I'm giving you, I need to be preserving that. Everybody is talking about preserving their energy, right? But that's true. That's true. We all have to learn how to preserve our energy. And so, in interpersonal relationships, we just really have to put ourselves in position that sometimes it's putting ourselves first. Actually, all the time it's putting ourselves first, but learning how to do that in love. That doesn't mean that because I'm putting myself first, I can't help somebody, or I can't show empathy, or I can't show compassion. No, that's a part of putting yourself first, because you are hoping and needing people to do that for you at some point. And Trey's correct. A lot of people want to put the blame on others for things that they caused. And that's honestly, that's a major problem. Because those are relationships that can't last very long. If you're the person who's always putting the blame on other people, those relationships are being stretched paper thin. I know everybody's had a rubber band at some point or another. You can stretch it as much as you want, but at a certain point, that rubber band pops. At a certain point, that rubber band has had enough tension. It can take it has taken as much as it can take. And our relationships become the same way if we continue to abuse them, or if we continue to allow ourselves to be abused. So we go back to the point that we teach other people how to treat us. And sometimes we don't get it right in the beginning. Sometimes we have to retrain people. Yeah, I used to be like that, but guess what? Some things are changing. Some things are changing. I can't keep on like this. So the option here is either we can grow together, or there has to be some separation. Bridges, why are you talking so spicy? He said, when you try to hold someone accountable, they want to call you crazy and gaslight you. It's easier for them to call you crazy than to take ownership. So again, Bridges, that is a situation that sounds like it's repetitive. That sounds like it continues to happen over and over again, and the person doesn't get that they're not treating you the way you want to be treated. Them gaslighting you is really a reflection of how they feel about themselves, and they are in such a fragile place themselves that they want someone else to feel bad for the things that they're not getting right. And that's not your responsibility to fix that for them. That's their responsibility to get help for those issues. And that's a whole nother discussion, because along with Trey saying earlier about pride, some of us are in relationships, have relationships, are connected to people that are too prideful to get help. And that may be us. That may be some of us, that we hold on to where we've been for so long that we've become stubborn, or we become set in that way, instead of saying, I need to get help so that I can treat myself better, so I can love myself better, so I can learn to treat other people better. Faye said, people project their issues on you. That is very true. Y'all are saying all kinds of truths in here today. They do. People do project their issues on you. And the thing about that is, when they do that and you recognize it and you actually call them out on that, like, no, sis. What the problem here is not the fact that I got a promotion on my job. The problem is that you feel like you've been stuck where you're at for too long. That's just one example, but if you call it out in a loving, out of love, that's one of the most important things, that however you treat other people, whatever you decide to address, you can't, if the person feels like you're attacking them, the same way if we feel like we're being attacked, what do? We block. However that is for you, whether that's deflecting, whether that's fighting, whether that's arguing, whether that's deciding that I'm not addressing it. All of those things can be defense mechanisms. And yes, Bridges, it looks like we will need a Navigating Relationships Part 2. Because I do try not to keep you guys for longer than 30 minutes. But though I know that relationships are important, I just honestly didn't think, I didn't think y'all would be so involved. Trey said people use childhood trauma to justify the way they act toward. You know what, Trey? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write that down because we're gonna come back to that when we do. That's what we'll do. Thursday we'll do a part 2. I had another topic, but we'll push that back and we'll do a part 2 of navigating relationships because there is more, for us to talk about. And relationships are not all negative, right? They're not always troublesome. They're not always full of problems, but we have them. We have problems. We have difficulties. We have times when we feel stressed out and overwhelmed because of relationships. But we also have times where we feel loved beyond what we've ever felt before. There are times where we feel accepted because of the relationships that we're in. That we feel like we're in a better place emotionally, mentally, and spiritually because of the people we surround ourselves with. All of those things are included, and we will definitely get to those on Thursday. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Shannon. We're actually just ending, guys, but we will have a part 2 on Thursday. I will post the flyer, and I always appreciate you guys for joining in and for communicating with me, talking to me. Of course, James, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And so I'll see you guys on Thursday. In the meantime, if you guys have questions or things that you want me to address, please feel free to DM me. And I will definitely have that in my notes to talk about on Thursday. Uh-oh, who is Frank Jordan coming in here dropping nuggets right as we leaving? Jeremy, for the summer, I have not been out there in Dallas, but I will be back in a little more than a month. But I love you guys. And Bridges, what? What if they not all? Can you DM that to me, Bridges? And I'll make sure I answer it on Thursday, because that's not a 2-word response. All right. Love you guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you soon.